Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. Thank you guys so much for joining the Satin Thanksgiving cupcake class. We can go over to the overhead camera and I'll show you guys what we'll be making today. All right, so we have a pumpkin cupcake, an acorn cupcake, and a pumpkin pie slice. So they all have these really cute faces across the way. And then I'm going to show you how to do this buttercream and sprinkle technique with layering. And then, all right, so I'll show you guys the materials we'll need for these. I'm going to put this to the side. We're going to be using orange fondant, dark brown fondant, green fondant, black fondant, and white fondant. I also have cornstarch here. So the cornstarch is going to help when we're using the fondant with our hands, if our hands are warm, or for the surface, it's going to keep it from sticking. I naturally have hotter hands, so I tend to use more cornstarch, but it's important not to use too much because that can dry the product out. So we'll talk about that as we start working. I also have water and a food safe paintbrush. This is going to help us adhere the fondant to each other. I also have Ziploc bags. This is going to help keep our fondant fresh and from drying out. Once you open the fondant, this doesn't have a resealed, this can't be resealed. So I recommend putting it in a plastic bag, or even better, putting it in an airtight container or both. This will make sure that it stays fresh. Once fondant is exposed to air, it will begin to dry out right away. So it's very important to keep your fondant in a closed container. So I also have I have wet wipes, and I also have dry paper towels. This is to help me keep my hands clean in between each project because I don't have access to soap and water right now. So if you do have access to soap and water, definitely use that. That's better, but this is what I have for right now. I have orange buttercream. This is going to be for the top of our cupcakes. You can use whatever color you like. I just thought the orange was festive. I also have a knife, a little small sharp knife. And I also have an X-Acto knife just in case. This helps with like precision and small things. Then we also have a small rolling pin, the silicone mat, which is underneath all of this. This is really good for your work surface because it helps things from sticking as well. I also have a pair of scissors. This is going to help me open up the packages of fondant, a 2-inch circle cutter, and then this is the fun sprinkle mix that we have. So I know there's definitely sprinkle mixes out there that are already pre-mixed, but if you don't want a huge bag of them, you can always make them yourself. That's what I did. I just bought different little small packages of sprinkles from Michael's, and I combined them together to create a fall mix. So I've got some orange, some gold, some white, some red and brown in there, and it makes a really pretty mix. So this is what we're going to be dipping the cupcakes into to create that layered effect with the sprinkles. Okay, so the first topper we're going to make is the pumpkin pie slice. So I'm going to leave that here so everyone can see it. And I'm going to move everything else to the side to give some room. Okay, so for the pumpkin pie slice, we're going to need almost every material. We're just going to need orange, dark brown, white, and black. Buttercream to the side for right now. So what we want to do first is we want to create this brownish orange color that pumpkin pie is. So we're going to do some color mixing, which is a lot of fun. That's what's great about Satin Ice, is that they offer a ton of colors, and there's also a color mix guide, so you can create unique shades, and it's really easy to do. So we're going to open up the orange, the brown, and the white right now. We'll put the black to the side because that's going to be for the face. Open up the orange. Satin Ice fondant is also available in 2-pound and 5-pound, and that comes in buckets. I like to use the small 4-ounce per class because I'm usually making a small piece, and it helps explain the how to do color mixes with parts easily. So now I'm just opening up the dark brown. So all of Satin Ice Fondant is vanilla flavor, and it's delicious. It tastes just like icing. But the dark brown is actually chocolate flavor. This stuff is so good. I could eat it by the block. Tastes like a fudge. Then I'll open up the white, and then I'll get into the color mixing. Okay, so for this color mix, we're going to use a small amount of dark brown because a little bit will go a long way with this since it is a dark color. And we're going to use around equal shades of white. The reason why I have the white is because it's going to lighten it just a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to use about like half a part of the dark brown. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the fondant into parts. I'm going to lay them out this way you guys can easily see the parts. So for the parts, I'm just going to cut like a portion off, and you can use that portion to be equal with your other parts. So we want 5 parts white, 5 parts orange, and about 1 part brown, or even maybe half of a part of brown. We don't want it to be too dark. So I'm going to cut 5 parts of the white right now. So I'll do 5 even cuts. It's okay if it's a little off. If you do have a food scale, you can measure these. So you would want it to be, say, 10 grams white fondant, 10 grams orange fondant, and then 1 gram dark brown fondant, or half of a gram. It's all the same ratio. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I have my 5 parts white right here. So the rest of this white, I'm going to package up into my Ziploc bag so that it stays fresh. And I will be doing the same thing with my other colors as well. So now I'm going to just use this. I'm going to place this on top to measure about what my part was for white. And I'm going to do 5 cuts of this portion as well for the orange. Okay, so I have 5 parts of that. I'll put this orange in the Ziploc bag as well. And for the brown, I'm just going to do half of a part of brown. So I'm going to cut 1 part, and then I'm going to cut that part in half to create half. So really, it's just a really small amount of brown. And if you guys have any questions along the way, please put it in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, so to start off, fondant isn't really hard, but it's definitely firmer when it's out of the package. So what we want to do is we want to knead this, and that's going to activate the gums in the product and make it flexible. So we can easily roll it out, we can mold the shapes, whatever we need to do. So first, I'm just going to get these pieces molded together just by kneading them a little bit so that I can easily combine the colors.
Hey, Sarah, quick question, Michaela. If you store the different fondants in the same bag, will the colors mix together by being against each other?
So the only reason I'm doing that is just because I'm going to use this pretty much right away and they are spaced out. I wouldn't store them on top of each other in the same bag. I would make sure they have enough room. This way the colors don't bleed, especially I do have white in here. So if this white touched the orange, it could potentially stick and then the orange could get on the white. So I'm very cautious that these are not touching. I would recommend storing them in separate bags if you were storing them for a long time. Okay, so now I'm just going to knead these pieces of orange fondant together to get them a little soft. We are gonna wind up with a lot more of this color than we need right now, but it's just so I could easily show you guys the parts to make the color. Okay, so that's softer now. And we'll get this dark brown a little soft. And then what we're going to do is we're going to combine all three colors and see what shade we get. Combining the pre-mixed shades is a lot easier than having to mix food dye in because it's less messy. Okay, so I'm just going to place these on top of each other and I'm just going to start kneading. So when I knead, if I have a large amount, what I like to do is I like to use the base of the palm of my hand and I press down and then I fold and I press down. And I just keep repeating this until my color begins to form and everything starts to blend together. So at first it might seem a little hard, especially if you're working with a lot of fondant, but the more that it gets warmed up and the gums get released and worked in, then the easier it will get. You can already see that the color is starting to change. It's turning into like a brownish orange. And then if you end up making a color mix and you're like, oh, that's not exactly the shade I thought that was going to turn out, you can always just add more of another color in to get the correct shade. Okay, so also at this point, if you're noticing your hands are getting more and more, they're sticky, this is where your cornstarch will come in. So, and it can come out fast. I don't know what type of shaker everyone has. So just be careful. If it does come out fast, that's okay. You can just wipe some to the side, but it's good to have some on your surface so that the fondant doesn't stick and that so it doesn't begin to stick to your hands. I'm going to place a little bit on my hands because I do have warmer hands. Okay, so my color is just about combined. And it's definitely very flexible now, which is good. This is what we want. Okay, so like I said, I have more of the color than we need. So I'm just going to take probably half of this amount and I'll store the rest of this in a Ziploc bag. So if you are making a bunch of these at once, go for it and make a ton of the color, and then you can always save it for later. If you are saving it for later, make sure it's in the Ziploc bag, closed very tightly, and then I would also place it into a airtight container to really ensure that there's no air getting into the fondant. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to roll this out. I just like to give it a little press down to make sure there's like any air bubbles that get out from us kneading and folding. And then what we're going to do is give your surface a little bit more cornstarch. And then we're just going to roll back and forth just a little bit. We want the fondant to be about 1/4 inch thick. Normally when you're decorating cakes or covering cookies, you would want like 1/8 of an inch thick. We are going on the thicker side just because these are acting as our cupcake topper. So I would want them to have some substance to them. So I'm just going to lightly roll back and forth. I'm not going to have to roll it much because I do want it thicker. So it's probably all I'm going to roll, and I'll show you the thickness. I did see a question come through before, but I missed it before I could read it.
So we have two questions right now. Does the fondant darken as it's exposed, or does the color stay the same?
So the color will stay the same. It's important not to have your fondant exposed to too much air, because not air, light. Well, air too, but light, because the light will cause the fondant to actually lighten up. So we'll do the opposite. It's not going to darken. If anything, it could lighten up just a little bit, but that's only if it's exposed to really bright light for a while.
Okay, great. And then another question, instead of the cornstarch, can you use powdered sugar?
Yes, you can use powdered sugar. Powdered sugar or cornstarch are your go-tos. I would not use flour,
Okay.
but powdered sugar will just work just as good. So I'm sorry, you guys, I have a cold, so that's why I'm constantly clearing my throat or if I cough. So I'm sorry in advance. I'm going to use the 2-inch circle cutter now, and we're just going to press down. And to make sure you have a nice clean cut, I like to give it a little twist. And that's going to make the sides of my fondant clean. If they aren't clean because the cutter isn't sharp enough, you can just pick it up, take your finger and just like go over the edges to make sure there's any strands that are hanging out get attached back to the fondant. Okay, so now for this part, we're going to make the shape of the slice of pie. Also, this extra fondant, we're going to store back in with the rest of this color. So for this, what we're going to do is I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. So we want to make a diagonal cut for this part of the slice of pie. So it's going to be a diagonal cut at the top of the circle. And you're just going to cut that little portion off. Okay, so we're going to cut that portion off. And then what we're going to do is we want the bottom to be flat, a straight edge. So I'm going to go up a little bit and cut a straight edge. So I'm really not taking that much off of this circle. I'm just kind of taking a small amount off the bottom and then a little bit diagonal off the top to get this triangle shape. So the next part is, this is kind of maybe like a 3-dimensional type of slice of pie. So the next part is I'm going to make the portion, the line, the score of the line in the middle of the pie that creates the bottom half of the slice and the top of the slice, or the middle of the slice, if that makes sense. So I'm going to take my knife and lightly score across the center horizontal of the slice of pie, and that's going to give us the 2 different sections. So just like that. Okay. So next we can make the crust, and the crust we're actually going to color mix again as well. We're going to mix the dark brown and the white to create like a light tan color, the color of what that crust would be. For this, again, we're taking a really small amount of the dark brown because it is a very dark color. So I have my other half of a part from before, but I think I'm going to actually even cut this half of the part in half because we really don't need that much. And then I'm going to use about 5 parts white to create that tan shade. Actually, maybe not 5 parts, since I did put this is like a half of a half. So I'll probably, this is the rest of the fondant that I had from before. So this is probably about 4 to 5 parts. So I'll probably do about 3, and we'll see what color we get. If I have to make it lighter, then I'll make it lighter. Okay, so again, we're just going to soften each of these pieces of fondant before we begin to knead them together. So I'm just going to make sure this is soft. Now I'm going to make sure this one's soft. And then I'll begin to combine these together, and we will continue to knead this until a light brown or like a a light tan color forms. And again, if I need to add more white to make it more of a tan color, then I will. I'm going to use some cornstarch on my hands just because my hands are getting a little sticky. All right, I think this color is going to work good. And again, we probably have too much of this color. We are going to need a lot less than this. See. So first, let's do the bottom crust. So the bottom crust is going to go along this bottom edge and just a little bit halfway up the side, just to where that center line is. And to make that, we're going to first form a ball of fondant just like this, and we're going to roll that into a skinny log. To roll it into a log, you're just going to lightly press down with your finger and roll back and forth. I like to move my finger along the different ends of this so that everything's equal and one side isn't skinnier than the other. Okay, so now I'm just going to measure here just to see, to make sure if I have enough, and I have the perfect amount. So now what I'm going to do is I just want to flatten this out a little bit. So I'm going to take my pointer finger and I'm just going to lightly press down along this, and then I will make sure everything's even. And so now what we're going to do is we have a flat, long rectangle now, and we're going to put the flat edge against the bottom of the pie slice and attach it that way. And mine actually got longer from me flattening it out a little bit, so I'm just going to cut a little bit off. Okay. So I have this flat edge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the tiniest amount of water. I like to take the excess water off as much as I can. And I'm just going to lightly brush it along the bottom edge of this slice of pie. Using too much water can make the fondant too sticky and colors can blend together and it could just be a mess. So it's better to use a small amount of water. Okay, so we have our bottom crust on. Try picking this up to show you. So next we're going to make the top crust, and we're going to use the same technique. So we're going to use a small ball of the tan fondant and we're going to roll it into a log. So I'm just lightly moving my pointer finger on the fondant back and forth, side to side, until I have a skinny log. I like to go side to side because this makes sure that the log is even. We are going to be kind of scrunching this up to create the lattice look, or like the crimped, not the lattice, the crimped pie look for along the edge. So you might want to do it a little bit longer. And if it's too long, that's okay. We can cut the rest off. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of crimp the edges. So I'm going to move a piece up, attach the side, move this piece down. So we're kind of scrunching it. And this is going to create that crimped pie crust look. So this is what I have so far. And I think that might be just enough for my slice of pie. So I have a lot left over, so I'll take that off. And this is what I end up with. So it's just a log that's scrunched up to make it look like it's a crimped crust for the pie. I think I want mine to be a little shorter. So what I'm going to do is just cut the bottom edge off a little bit so that it sits uniform with a slice of pie. So again, I'm taking the smallest amount of water and I'm going to brush it along the edge of the slice of pie and attach this crust. Okay, I don't want to pick this piece of fondant up too much, so I hope you guys can see. I know I'm working with like smaller details. The less you move your fondant around once you're working, the better, because like I said, once it's exposed to air, it's already starting to dry. So this can cause the fondant to like have some cracks if I pick it up and maneuver it too much. So I'm going to leave it there and we're going to start the whipped cream on top. So for the whipped cream, we're actually going to use a similar technique that we just did for the crust, but just with white. So we're going to take a small amount of white fondant. We're going to roll it into a ball and roll it into a log again. And then I want one of the sides of the log to be a little bit skinnier, and that's going to be the top of my whipped cream dollop. So to make the dollop, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to kind of zigzag it. So it's like, and swirl it up. And have a point at the top so it looks like a whipped cream dollop like this. And then I'm just going to use, again, a really small amount of water to attach this to the top of the pie. Okay, so now we're going to make the face. And for this, you're just going to need a really small amount of black fondant and a really small amount of white fondant. I am going to take this tan fondant that we were using and put it into a Ziploc bag so that that stays fresh. Okay, so we have to open up our black fondant. We are going to really need the smallest amount. And when you get to these really small details on these toppers, it can get a little hard because the fondant might want to stick to your hands when you're applying it. So I'm going to use really small amount. We're probably not even going to use this much. So now that I have this fondant opened, I will put this in a Ziploc bag too. So first, let's start with the eyes. So for the eyes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take two really small pieces of this black fondant and I'm going to roll two really small balls that are about the same size. And so this is going to be the eyes, but I like to do this technique where I roll the fondant into small balls and then I put them where I want the eyes to be, and then I press down to make them into circles. I do this like this because it's once you flatten that little circle down on the mat, it's going to be really hard to pick that up off the mat and then keep its shape of a circle. So I like to put them where they're going to be on the piece of fondant and then lightly press down with my pointer finger to turn it into a circle, and then it's already on the fondant. It's a lot easier. And if it doesn't want to stick like mine's doing, I'm just going to take, again, a very, very, very small amount of water, like a tiny dab, just enough to help it stick. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to put two really small specks of white on each side of the eye, and this gives it a really cute look. So you guys probably can't even see the the white fondant I'm using right now because it's really small. It's really just a speck. You could put 1 or 2 on each side. You can also make like bigger pupils for the eyes too if you want, if this is too difficult. Okay, so that part of the eye is done. I'm gonna try to pick this up so you guys can see what this looks like. This is what it looks like so far. Are there any questions so far?
Just a lot of like we're getting some comments about how cute this is.
Oh, thank you guys. I know it's so, I love the facial expression. It really
It's
makes
adorable.
them really cute.
We did just get a question from Lisa. She wants to know, she would like to know if will it eventually dry together where those smaller pieces won't fall off.
Yes, so actually so when you're working with the fondant is actually getting a little sticky and tacky because of the warmth of your hands. So some of these small pieces should just stick together. And if not, whenever you have to use the water is going to adhere and the water is eventually going to dry. But I like to use really the smallest amount of water because you don't want any colors to bleed on top of each other. And when you're working with darker colors and a really small amount, it can get a little messy. So that's why I like to say to use like the smallest amount of water. Just really just make your paintbrush just a little damp, just to get it a little sticky. Okay, so for the mouth, again, we're taking, I already have enough, really, really small amount of black fondant. And we're going to roll this. You guys are, it's like this small. And I'm going to roll it into a really skinny little log. And I'm going to make a U shape. And that's going to be the smile. So this part is always the hardest part for me for getting it onto it. So that's what it looks like. So sometimes I like to use my knife to help me transfer it over to the piece of fondant that I'm working on. So let's see if it wants to cooperate today. I might have to okay, so I'm gonna have to dampen my brush and make it a little, there you go, line of water. And that's gonna help this little piece stick. If you have edible glue, you can also use that, but water works just as well. And then you can always use your knife to help you manipulate the little small pieces of fondant if your hands aren't working with you. Okay, so this one's done. It's really cute. So once you make these toppers, you do want to set them, I like to set them on like parchment paper to let them dry at least for 24 hours before placing them onto the cupcake, because if you place this directly onto the cupcake, it's going to take form of the buttercream. So it's going to eventually go like this. We want it to stay in the shape that it is. So we're going to just let it dry flat on parchment paper. I don't have parchment paper with me right now, so I'm just going to put this to the side so we can start the next topper. So the next topper we're going to do is the acorn. So for this, actually, if you guys still have leftover of this tan color that we use for the crust, let's just use that because we have enough of it. But if you don't, this was just about like a small amount of dark brown fondant and about like 4 parts of white. So half of a part of dark brown and about 4 parts of white. You just want like a lighter brown color because we're using the dark brown for the top of the acorn. So we just need some contrast. So I have the rest of my tan color fondant and I'm just going to make sure this is kneaded up. I'm also going to just wipe my surface a little bit just to make sure there's no other colors on there, so that it's clean. Excuse me. Okay. So again, I'm just going to lightly press down on this fondant to make sure there's no air bubbles. And I'm going to dust a little bit more cornstarch from my surface. And again, we want this about the same thickness as the pumpkin pie slice. So I probably have enough that what I'm going to need. So I'm really not going to roll this out too much. And I'll show you guys the thickness. We want about 1/4 of an inch thick. I'm just really lightly rolling back and forth to smooth this out. And this is the edge. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use the same circle cutter, press down, give it a little twist so it's a nice clean cut. And then what we're gonna wanna do right away before this starts to dry and set is we wanna manipulate this shape so that it creates like a teardrop shape. So what we're going to do is take your pointer finger and your thumb and kind of pinch this, just begin to like lightly start forming a teardrop shape. You can even put it on your mat. And I'm just like pinching the bottom to make it have a point. You could just do it slowly, and you can, I'm also molding up against the sides to make sure everything stays even. Okay, so then you have your little teardrop shape. Now, if you do have a teardrop shape cutter or like a petal cutter, you can totally use that. I like to try to stick with the simple tools that most people will have. Okay, so next we want to create the top half of the acorn. So we're going to use the dark brown fondant. I think I saw a question come through about edible paint, unless it was edible glue, I'm not sure.
Yes, there is a question regarding edible paint. And if you know, can you make edible paint out of meltables? I know this is not really completely to this class, but
Edible paint out of meltables. No, I mean, you probably could use a paintbrush to make like cool techniques with meltables or candy melts, but to make edible paint, you want to use alcohol and food color, and you mix those two together, and then that will create your edible paint.
very cool. We
Or
did have
like,
a question.
okay, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
All right, from Danielle. Will you be sharing your buttercream recipe by chance?
So the buttercream is made with the Satin Ice buttercream icing mix. I actually have a pail right here. This is also sold at Michael's. This stuff is amazing. It tastes just like homemade, and it's so quick and easy to make. All you have to do is add the mix to, the mix is like kind of a dough base. I don't have any in here right now to show you, but it's kind of like a dough base that you put into the mixer. And then you also add some butter or water, and there's different recipes that you can make: chocolate, peanut butter. This stuff is awesome. There's no messy powders flying around. I love it. It's my favorite buttercream, and it mixes up in about 2 minutes.
Oh, awesome.
So I highly recommend it. All right, so for the top of this acorn topper, I'm just kneading some of the dark brown fondant, and only a small amount. I'm actually going to roll this out pretty thin, so even thinner than 1/8 of an inch, because we are layering it on top of this piece of fondant. So I'm just going to roll back and forth so it gets pretty thin, and until it's big enough so that I can cut the circle. Okay, So I have my piece pretty thin for reference. And we're just going to cut a circle out again. And then what we want to do is we want to cut this circle in half horizontally. So I'm just using my knife to cut across. And then what we're going to do is attach this to the top of the acorn. So I am going to brush a really small amount of water on the top so this can stick. And I am bringing it over the edge of the acorn. So it looks like this. And then to create that like crisscross pattern on the top, you're going to take your knife and we're just going to score lines. You're not going to completely cut through. You just want to like score lines diagonally across. I'll bring this up closer in a second so you guys can see. So one way, and then we're going to go horizontally across and just score lines to create that pattern. And then we're going to use a little bit of the dark brown fondant for the little nub on top. And then it's time for the face. And the face is the same exact face that we did on the pumpkin pie slice. Sorry for coughing. So we're going to need a really small amount of black fondant again and a really small amount of white fondant. Since I was just working with the dark brown fondant, I am going to use my towel and I'm going to wipe my hands because I do have residue on them. It's really important that your hands are always clean when you're working with fondant, especially in between colors. It will also help to wear gloves because that can kind of act as a barrier of the heat from your hands. And then I'm going to make sure that my hands are nice and dry so that the fondant doesn't stick to them. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of black out. And we're going to do that same technique where we roll 2 small balls of black fondant, place them on the topper. You want to make sure they're pretty even in size. And then use your pointer finger to lightly press down to create a circle. And this kind of makes them adhere to the topper as well. And then again, we're just going to take 2 really small specks of white for each eye. And I'm going to put them each on the right side of the eye. This gives it that really cute look. Right, I'm just going to do one more. And then for the smile, we're going to do the same exact thing as before. We're going to take a really small amount of black fondant and make it into a U shape. Okay, so try to show you guys this up close. So I'm just taking a really small amount. I'm actually doing it right on my finger. This is actually better because it will already be in my hand. This way I don't have to try and pick it up off the mat. This is probably too big, so I have to cut this. Cut it a little bit. So this is my little strand of black fondant, and now I'm going to just turn it into like a U shape for the smile. And we're going to put it on the topper. But I might, oh, see, I just screwed that up. I'm gonna have to use a really small amount of water, just a little bit. And then again, I'm going to use my knife to help me move this around a little bit to make sure it's even. Okay, and then that's our acorn topper, and the next will be our pumpkin topper. So I'm going to leave this over to dry with the other one. So we've got our acorn, we've got our pumpkin pie slice, and then next is our pumpkin.
Hey, Sarah, just wanted to give you a time check. We have about 13 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So for the pumpkin, we just want to lighten up the orange we have. You don't even have to lighten it up. I just did to make the face pop a little bit more. So what I did was took a small amount of white. I'm going to use like half of this amount of orange fondant. So you want to knead your orange fondant to get it nice and soft. You can use the orange fondant straight up, or you can mix with a little bit of white to lighten it up. Again, I only did that just to help kind of have the face pop and to just keep it with the tone of the other toppers as well. So I'm just going to put a small amount of white in here. And we're going to knead it until it's completely combined. Okay, so now it's a lighter orange. I'll show you. This is the original orange, and this is the orange with a little bit of white. Okay, so for the pumpkin topper, we're again going to roll this out about a 1/4 inch thick, just like the others. First, I'm just rolling it into a nice neat ball. I'm going to press down a little bit to get any air out. And I'm going to roll back and forth just a little bit because I do have the size that I need. I just want to smooth this out a little bit. So this is the thickness. And I'm going to take my circle cutter. You always want to make sure that you clean the bottom edge of your cutter that you're working with too, in case any fondant stuck to it from before. So I'm going to press down, give it a little twist, and put the extras away in a bag. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pointer finger and I'm going to press down on the top to kind of create like a little slight indent at the top to create that pumpkin shape. I'll pick this up to show you guys. So I just lightly pressed in the center on the top to give it a little bit of an indent. Nothing dramatic, just enough to alter the shape a little bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to score the lines on the pumpkin. So I just took my knife and before fully scoring it in, I kind of like just lightly go over to make my mark of where I want the lines to be. You guys probably can't see them yet, so I'm just making a really light mark. And then I'll go in, I'll go back and I'll go a little deeper for the score. First, I like to map out where I'm going to make the score to make sure everything is good. I'll bring this up close again so you guys can see. just a light score to give the shape of the pumpkin. So we'll take a little bit. I actually still have some of my tan fondant from before. You can either use the straight up dark brown fondant, or you can mix them with white to create like a lighter brown for the stem of the pumpkin. I'm going to use this light tan color just because I already have this mixed. So what I did for that was I just rolled a ball. I made like I rolled it like a log, just a tiny bit, just to give it a little bit of a longer shape. And then I attached it to the top, just like that. And then next we will do the green. Again, for the green, you can mix it with a little bit of white if you want, or you can use the straight up green. This is going to be for the stem and the leaves. So to save some time, I'm just going to show you with the straight up green. And so what I did was I rolled out 4 skinny logs or strands, actually 3, we'll do 3. I need to put some cornstarch on my hands because mine are getting a little sticky. So you want to roll out 3 skinny strands of green fondant. And then these are going to be like the vines on the pumpkin. You don't have to be perfect because we are going to be twisting them a little bit. Okay, so to make the vines, once you have this, you're just going to manipulate it to kind of swirl it to create like a vine. And then you can attach it to the pumpkin and fix its shape even more. I'm just kind of overlapping them a little bit and I'm attaching them to the base of the stump on the pumpkin. You can do more than 3 if you wanted as well. And then for the leaf on the pumpkin, what I did was I rolled a really small ball of green fondant and then I turned it into a cone shape by making one side of the circle or on one side of the ball pointier, so it's a cone shape. And then what I did was I slightly flattened that and that created a leaf shape. Like that. And then I took my knife and I lightly scored a line down the center to just make it look like a leaf. And then I attached this right by the base of the stump on the pumpkin. And then for the face, again, it's the same technique. So we're going to take a really small amount of black fondant to create 2 small balls. Place them on the pumpkin where you want the eyes. Press down on each one to form a circle. While I have the black out, I'll also do the mouth. So I'm taking a really small amount of black fondant. And I'm going to make a really skinny strand and then turn that into a U shape for the mouth. I'll have to use a little bit of water. Okay, to help shape it out and maneuver a little bit, you can use your knife. And then to finish off the eyes, I'm going to add the 2 specks of white on each eye. Are there any more questions on the toppers I can answer before we move to the buttercream part?
No questions.
Okay. Okay, so the pumpkin is done now too. Pick this up, this pumpkin. All right, so we've got our 3 toppers, and now I'll show you. These are not going to be ready to be put on the cupcakes yet, but I'll show you how to create this design with the sprinkles and the buttercream. So I have my cupcake and I have my buttercream, and I'm using like a star tip. And first, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a ring around the cupcake with the buttercream. Just like this. And then I have my sprinkle mixture. You can put it in a bowl. I have mine on a plate. And I'm going to stick this into the sprinkle mixture. Make sure this layer of buttercream is coated by the sprinkles. So it looks like this. And then what we're going to do is we'll go in the middle and then do your final dollop. And then your topper can go right in the center. There you go. And that's it for today's class. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you guys have any more questions, there's a couple more minutes left. I can answer them, but other than that, thank you guys so much for joining. I had a lot of fun. And this tutorial will also be on satinice.com, and Michael's will also put it on their YouTube channel.
Awesome.
So
Much, Sarah.
thank you guys. Have a great night.
Bye.